of those suspensions, I'm pleased to announce that the House will consider H.R. 2019, the Gabriella Miller Kids First Research Act, sponsored by Representatives Greg Harper and Peter Welch, which has over 2,000 citizen co-sponsors and puts into practice what I hope we will all agree on, which is to place a priority on pediatric medical research over political party convention.
I have very good ears, except for when my parents are calling me to come get dressed or make my bed or brush my teeth. And I heard them talking about the government and saying that they wanted to give a little money to childhood cancer just because. And Senator Reid says, why would we do that for one child? I have people that are off work for a few days. People are off work for a few days all the time. Think of the parents that are off work for their children who have cancer. And that brought a lot of awareness for childhood cancer, so I think that'll last a while. But it needs to be, there could be a lot of awareness at one time, and then after a while it just dies off. But I would prefer there would be like a little awareness out there, and it'd be constant, forever and ever and ever awareness, and that will build up. It's like sugar. Sugar, you go up like this, and then you go down like this. If you have protein, you go up only halfway, but you're steady for the entire day. And that's what we need.
Joining me now to react is the House Majority Leader, Eric Cantor, Republican of Virginia. Congressman Cantor, thanks so much for being here. Let me get your reaction to these enrollment numbers.
Well, pretty stunning. Just another day in a series of mess-ups in Obamacare. You really can't even tell what's going on here. They say 25,000 names and people who have apparently gone to the healthcare.gov website, but we don't know whether they purchased insurance or whether it's just in the shopping cart. And the same goes for the state exchanges. We don't really know. And this is the problem. I mean, any of these numbers pale into comparison with the millions of Americans who are receiving these cancellation notices. I mean, Jake, this is what the problem is right now, is millions of Americans are being told by their insurance companies that they can no longer have the health care they need because of Obamacare, or that they like.
Somebody from Richmond, Virginia. Now, these plans are being canceled because they don't meet the standards of Obamacare, the standards that would allow quality care, higher quality care, the Obama administration says, better care, covering more things. Is that not a good goal to have fewer what the Obama administration calls junk plans?
This has been the problem all along. When the President Obama thinks he knows better for families what they need, what they can afford, that's when things go awry. And again, millions of Americans who have actually chosen the plans that fit their budget and fit their health care needs are being told that you can't have those.
But surely you acknowledge that some of these plans are junk plans. Some of these plans don't actually cover health insurance when families need them. Some of these plans take advantage of individuals. Well, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them.
Well, I mean, but we're hearing from millions of Americans who say, I like my health care. And in fact, if you look at any of the public polling, most Americans who have health care insurance right now like their health care. These are the ones that we're talking about, frankly, in trying to help. And this is what the Fred Upton bill on the floor of the House this week will try and address. And it's not a total fix. I mean, listen, the only way you're going to stop these cancellation notices, the only way you're going to fix this is to repeal Obamacare. We've been there. The president says he won't do that. So this is one step towards trying to help people who are getting hurt right now.
Well, let's talk about fixing it. I want to play some sound from former President Clinton and also from Dick Durbin, the #2 Senate Democrat.
So I personally believe, even if it takes a change in the law, the president should honor the commitment the federal government made to those people and let them keep what they got.
I would say to President Clinton, if we can bring that bipartisan group together, we can start to solve some of the problems we're facing.
There's a bill in the House right now, as you mentioned, that would let insurance companies keep offering these plans that don't meet Obamacare standards for another year. But healthcare experts say this is going to be an administrative nightmare. Are House Republicans willing to work with Dick Durbin and Senate Democrats to try to fix some of these problems in a bipartisan way?
Look, what we have said all along is we want what's best for people's health care right now. We've never believed that Obamacare and its mandates and Washington knows best mentality is what's good for people's health care. So if the Democrats are now saying, you know what, we ought to let people choose, we ought not be imposing higher prices on people, and yes, we certainly want to work with them, but you know what, this is Bruno Gora, as you suggest, Jake, Richmond, Virginia constituent of mine, who says that now he not only can no longer have his health care coverage that he likes, he will be charged up to $3,400 more just because President Obama and Washington say that he should have the health care coverage that they say is appropriate, not for him.
And that is a story that we've been covering in the media for weeks, but there are other stories, positive ones, people who are benefiting from Obamacare. One of the TV stations in Richmond, WTVR, did a story recently of how Obamacare is affecting people in the community. There were some negative stories like the one you just shared. There were also some positive ones. They talked to two women, one signing up who doesn't have insurance, and a mother with special needs child. Take a listen.
His monthly medication bills, if I didn't have health insurance, would be over $1,000. It certainly gives me a level of comfort that I didn't have before.
If you actually have the opportunity to get affordable health care, because I currently don't have a job that offers health care.
So that's from Richmond TV station WTVR. I'm sure you're familiar with them. In addition, a Kaiser Family Foundation study found that more than 500,000 Virginia residents are going to be eligible for these subsidies, for these tax credits to help them. What do you say to people? I know what you say to these people, but what do you say to the people who are benefiting from Obamacare?
What we say is there is a better way for them to benefit and to have health care insurance that fits their needs. Republicans have always said in the House when Obamacare debate was ongoing in '09 is that there is a more efficient way to help those with pre-existing conditions. We don't feel that they ought to be denied coverage, but we ought not be raising prices on people like Mr. Gora here to say you have to pay $3,400 more.
But how do you do it? How do you bring in the special needs kid who would normally maybe be denied coverage because it's so expensive without asking other individuals to pay a little bit more?
What we have said is that we would believe in the creation of high-risk pools at the state level, properly and adequately fund them, and then ensure that the rates and premiums that they're charged don't exceed at least 100, 150% of the market rate for insurance. Absolutely, there are ways to do this. The problem now is, as we know, Jake, there's very little option for Mr. Gora if he is in the individual market now to buy a plan that best fits his need. In many instances, you're having 61-year-old men say, hey, we've got to have maternity coverage in a policy that I have to buy. That's exactly the point. Mr. Gora knows best what's for him, not Mr. Obama.
We only have about a minute and a half left, and I know you want to talk about Iran, a very important issue going on. You're wary of these negotiations that are going on right now between the White House, Western powers, and Iran. I want to play something of what Jay Carney said in response to opposition to these negotiations.
The American people justifiably and understandably prefer a peaceful solution that prevents Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. And this agreement, if it's achieved, has the potential to do that. The American people do not want a march to war.
A march to war, Majority Leader Cantor. Is turning away from negotiations potentially leading to a march to war?
You know, I find that just astounding that the White House would say that a deal that would allow enrichment of uranium and building a plutonium reactor, something that is not a march to war. That's the march to war. The deal that was in the works, frankly, would allow Iran to continue its pursuit of nuclear weapons capability. And in fact, what we're trying to do in the Congress, as we already have done in the House, is to pass additional sanctions. And it's up to the Senate now because the House has passed the sanctions. You know, and I think, you know, what is very odd right now in the Middle East is you have the Arabs and the Israelis joined together in their sense that American foreign policy, as it's played out in that potential interim agreement, is something that is not helpful to the stability of the region. And in fact, those allies of ours are telling us to allow Iran the ability to continue to enrich or build a plutonium factor is a sure way to spawn nuclear proliferation and, God forbid, face a nuclear Iran.
So you're saying that the Obama administration has been able to unite the Israelis and the Arabs?
In an odd way, all of a sudden, that they're united against what our White House is pursuing in terms of policy.
House Majority Leader Eric Cantor, we always appreciate when you come by. Thank you so much for sharing.
Hello, I'm John Sefrin, CEO of the American Cancer Society's Cancer Action Network. Since the Affordable Care Act was signed into law a year ago, several important provisions have taken effect that are improving the healthcare system for people with cancer and their families. For example, patients no longer face dollar limits on coverage that can cause the sudden termination of care, and children can no longer be denied healthcare coverage because of a pre-existing condition such as cancer. And proven prevention and early detection measures such as mammography, colonoscopy, and tobacco cessation must be covered by health insurance and offered to patients at no cost. And all 50 states now offer an insurance plan for people with pre-existing conditions who have been uninsured for 6 months or more. These provisions and many others reflect priorities adopted by the American Cancer Society and its Cancer Action Network long before the current health care debate began, and they are now improving access to quality, affordable health care. And they are helping the society to fulfill its mission to end suffering and death from cancer. But don't take my word for it. Listen to Heather Cornick from Elk Grove Village, Illinois, and Hillary St. Pierre from Charleston, New Hampshire, inspiring people who have been profoundly helped by provisions of the law. Heather is a recent college graduate and living with stage 4 adrenal cancer. People of Heather's age used to have to search for insurance on their own if they couldn't get coverage through their job. For someone with a condition such as cancer, finding coverage was not only very difficult, often impossible. Now, because of an Illinois law that is mirrored in the Affordable Care Act, Heather can remain on her parents' health insurance plan until she's 26 years old. Hillary is fighting Hodgkin's lymphoma and has come perilously close to reaching her lifetime limit not once, but twice. But under the provisions of the Affordable Care Act, she's free for the first time to make treatment decisions based on what's best for her health rather than on cost.
I currently work as a youth group advisor and preschool teacher. Both positions are part-time. The day I found out I had cancer was May 12th, 2008. I was about to go to my second day of my internship, and I got a phone call from my doctor who wanted me to come in right away to see the results of my CAT scan. If I was or not on my parents' plan, I know the treatment would be more expensive, but I'd still have to pay for it somehow. But it probably wouldn't be paid on time. It'd be more difficult, more stressful. It's just one more thing I don't need on my plate. The ACA has made it so that I haven't had to stop and think, well, will my insurance cover this? Am I still going to be insured? It's made it so I can get treated to make sure that I have the best quality of life as possible without having to worry about, oh, I don't have insurance. I'm not sure how I can afford to do this chemotherapy to make sure I can do the other things I want to do in my life.
I was married and had my son, and so when I was diagnosed, I think I was as prepared as anybody could possibly be to have a cancer diagnosis in their 20s. I've been threatened with reaching the lifetime maximum twice on both my insurances. The fear of reaching the $2 million maximum weighed as heavily on me as the fear of my disease, because both I felt could render the same and, both could wind up killing me. Yet the Affordable Care Act has been a huge relief to me. It's allowed me to have a quality of life I didn't know I could ever have again. It's allowed me to think freely about my options as far as treatment, but it's also allowed me to think freely about what I can do with my family and what I can enjoy and what won't have to go to healthcare bills.
These key provisions, which are now required by law, are making a life-saving difference to cancer patients and survivors. And additional provisions that will take effect in the coming years will do even more to improve access to quality health care nationwide. But our work is far from finished. The Society and ACS CAN are working hard to ensure that these provisions are implemented as strongly as possible for people with cancer and their families. And because the law is not perfect, ACS CAN is also working to strengthen it. This work is not just important, it is essential to ACS CAN's mission. We must continue this effort if we are to save 1,000 more lives a day, which is our goal. I encourage you to visit acscan.org/healthcare to learn more about this vital work and how you can help us. Thank you for your support of ACS CAN.